Okay, so I'm excited to welcome our speaker today, Joe Cloyes. So I know you're going to enjoy the session. The previous class I teach, there was like half a dozen students who were bugging him outside asking him questions. So I know you're going to get a lot out of hearing him talk. So Joe is a serial founder, started a number of companies from the skincare arena, Youth to the People, and then also now in the fragrance space, Lore. Has been an investor as well, and also the clean beer company, Father's Beer. So he'll have some great stories to tell us about everything from fundraising to being acquired. Youth to the People was acquired by L'Oreal, the largest cosmetics company in the world. So let's invite Joe.
Thanks, Aaron.
Sure.
Right, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Good. So as Aaron said, my name is Joe. It's funny, I always say I'm Joe, co-founder of Youth to the People, because that's what I did for 10 years. And got used to just saying that over and over, and now I'm always the co-founder, but I've now started some new things, and I'm no longer in day-to-day with people, so I don't really know what my title is anymore, but I'm still Joe, so that's good. Yeah, so a little bit about me. I grew up in the Bay Area. I guess I should start there. So I grew up in the Bay Area.
What city did you grow up in?
Walnut Creek and Pleasant Hill. Been in the East Bay. So grew up in the Bay Area, born and raised. Went to college in San Diego. After San Diego, I was in actually public administration. That was what I studied in college. I was going to go work for a city, do city planning, but I quickly realized I didn't like that after college and the degree and all that fun stuff. But made a little shift and did a couple different sales jobs, and then started working for my family's skincare company when I was, 25. And there, working alongside my cousin, learned a lot about the beauty industry, had a lot of fun doing that. And after about 7 years of doing that, my cousin Greg and I had the idea, like, let's start our own brand. And the two ideas there were pretty simple. We saw websites that were direct-to-consumer was becoming a thing, this was like 2011, 12, 13, and Instagram was starting to get popular. Back then, Instagram was very simple. The algorithm just served up who you followed, and it was a very simple thing. There were no ads, so it was like a really easy place to grow a brand quickly. And we had all this experience of, like, man, it'd be cool to build a skincare brand that, Greg and I loved. We love our family's products. It'd be cool to build a direct-to-consumer brand. Let's do this. So with the support of our aunts and our grandmother, we launched Youth to the People in 2015. The idea there was two-part. A, we were really fascinated by brands that stood for something beyond product. Something they just had a deeper meaning beyond, and I think for us it was exciting to try to do that in beauty. I think most skincare brands typically are driven by an ingredient or like a specific condition. Like, I want to make the best acne skincare line or whatever. But we wanted to build just great products with a purpose beyond, and that's where Youth to People kind of rounded out to become a product. The other side was in 2013 and 14, cold pressed juices really were hot. Like, everybody in this classroom would have had a cold pressed juice in front of them instead of a water bottle. Usually with kale. We were like, oh, let's do a kale cleanser. Simple idea, but can we do that? Now, we had the good fortune of having a skincare company that we worked at, so we were kind of built it in the back of the family company and launched Youth to the People, and it went fast. And so a couple things, we learned a lot along the way. We messed up a lot along the way. But when we launched, just a website and Instagram, slowly built it out, tried to get product out to people that were talking about skincare, so talking about beauty in Instagram, using creators. Now they're called, back then it was just, community. And it just slowly started building, and then in 2017, Sephora reached out, said, hey, we want to try your products, we really love them. They got into the products, they loved them, we met with them. Took about 6 months and built out our launch with them. And then once we launched with Sephora, we went from, I think we did about $500,000 in revenue to about $2 million in revenue in 6 months. And it was like, oh shit, I think we're onto something here, which was really cool. And it also almost completely sunk our family's company. We were almost all bankrupt because we just were like, to grow that fast, you have to spend way too much money on inventory and other things. And so the learning was like, oh man, okay, how do we figure this out? Well, we fundraise. So again, we'll talk about fundraising in a little bit, but we fundraised with a Series A in 2018, a Series B in 2019. And that allowed us to take it out of our family's companies, actually make it, build it into a real company versus just an idea, I would say. Fast forward a couple years, we sold in 2021. We were doing about $50 million in revenue. And and sold to L'Oreal. And the sell to L'Oreal, it's funny, one of the last classes, the student asked me this afterwards, why'd you sell? And it kind of came down to two parts, and I think this was a really good, the many things I learned. We had started to hit a size where at each stage of a company, you have to reset a little bit how you kind of operate and function. The brand values stay the same. Brand is the most important thing to me. What you build, like what your product North Star is, what your brand North Star is, can never go away. So like, we wanted to build the cleanest products that were good for you and good for the planet, and every product had to have a purpose beyond. And so when we were looking at like, these people, when we were looking at that, it was like, okay, we are hitting a size where it's candidly it's outside of our expertise level, and we need to bring in a whole new set of leadership, a new crew to kind of run this company. And you hit that point where like, do you want to reset the whole thing, or do you want to just sell? And we were fortunate enough to sell to L'Oreal, and now they're taking that. They're taking exactly what we built, what our whole great team built, and just replicating it and building it across the world. And so for us, it was a really cool, like, okay, now we can see the brand, hopefully 30 years from now, will still be going and be in existence. And I think very few brand founders get to say that, so it's an exciting thing. A little bit about like skincare for all, I think, is an important part of the brand. Beauty in 2010 to 15, 20, there's two parts. It wasn't very transparent, so ingredients weren't clear. You didn't have to list, like on food, they have to list every ingredient in there. They didn't have to do that in beauty at that time. So clean beauty was really just listing all of your ingredients and using better ingredients, not ingredients that you probably don't want to list, which is what was mostly being used. And then making it super effective, making it work. And skincare for all was that you can't, to be skincare for all, you have to build products about skin and for people and for a very diverse audience. And through that transparency, people really that care about beauty will see what's in it and decide they want to buy it. And so for us, it was a big, big North Star of ours. Just be as transparent as possible, build best products as possible, and do it for people of all skin tones, skin types. We learned a lot over those 7-8 years of business before we sold to L'Oreal, just about like who the consumer was, why they bought it. Sephora doesn't share a lot of data with you, unfortunately. They give you a little bit, not a ton, but we had enough in social and our own direct to consumer following to kind of get a feel for it, and then keep building products around those beliefs. Keep going. What else we got here? So fast forward. So when we sold to L'Oreal, in 21. My cousin Greg and I did about 2 years full time inside of L'Oreal, helping them integrate the brand, understand. They want to know like everything about it, how you make products, why you make products, why do you name them this way? Why don't you use those ingredients? We know they're on your list, but what's the real reason you don't use them? Which was, I don't know why they asked us that. They always, what's the real reason? Because it's L'Oreal, they always have an angle. We're like, this is because we want to do it that way. There was no like ulterior motive, but so about 2 years, really integrated the brand, and then post-integrating the brand, started to back out and like slowly, okay, great run, love L'Oreal, but we don't want to be full-time employees at a big corporation like that. It's in the hands of experts now. Let's go kind of figure out our next thing. So started to think about that, and we knew a woman named Melanie Bender, who was a longtime beauty executive. She was the CEO at Rhode. Prior to that, she was the founding president of Merit and First. So we knew her really well, a lot of experience in beauty, good friend, and we had a lot of shared values, which I think we'll talk about this in a few minutes. You want your business partners to have shared values that are aligned, because then everything else, all the other arguments, whatever else happens in business, kind of don't matter if your North Star or those shared values are the same. And the rest is just trying to get that to be the best of whatever that North Star is. So we all were really excited about the idea of doing fragrance, and we wanted to build a luxurious fragrance product that was at an approachable price point, but really, really cool and unique. And a couple of things we realized with scent was it's an invisible connection between friends. That's how we defined it, but that invisible connection in fragrance was so interesting to us because everything you smell, that smell is based on a memory. Whatever you smell in it is based on some sort of a memory. So how can we kind of lean into that storytelling when you're trying to sell a fragrance product online? Now we were doing it to sell product, but we're like, that's a really interesting thought when you're building a brand. And that's where the word lore came from. How do we build each product to have its own lore, its own story, its own world that you build around that with, through content, through whether it's video, photography, the words you use, the language, the typography, it all kind of comes through that way. So that was a really exciting challenge for us. We were fortunate enough to have had our successes, and we already knew Sephora well, so we had a launch plan with Sephora for September last year. So we raised money before we launched, instead of after, like we had 8 people, which is a lot harder. We were fortunate to raise it before because of our success, have a great investor partner. We've launched, Melanie's leading it, doing a fantastic job, and now it's starting to build. So it's been, what, 6-7 months now. It's starting to build. We're learning a lot. We're learning about the different types of content we need to do that are different than skincare. And I think having fun doing it. It's hard, it's a challenge, but it's a lot of fun, and it's what we love to do. We love to build stuff. So, and one thing I'll say is my cousin Greg and I are close. We're like best friends. We're both only children from a big family, same age, so we're like brothers. And we had this innate trust in one another that no matter what was going on, we knew what we both wanted to get done. We were very aligned on that, and we were able to build that with Melanie to where we have the same vision for what the brand should be, knowing that that will get us to what we want it to become. And so that allows for, we had a bad month last month. How do we course correct? What do we need to do? We don't want to sacrifice brand, but like we could do this, like really simple Instagram ad that would probably look shitty but sell a lot of product, but then it wouldn't be what we wanted to do for the brand, so should we do it? And that's always a big factor for founders, for entrepreneurs, is there's a lot of ways to help the business grow, but they might not help the brand grow. And so you have to like strike the balance there a little bit. And it's interesting. We have a board meeting next week, and we're going to talk about that exact thing. Are we too brand? Do we need to come back? Do we need to be more commercial? And I think it all comes back to our North Star as a feeling. We have this feeling for what we want it to be, and if we keep to that, we believe it will be a long-term successful business. So that's lore. And then most recently, I've started a brand called Fathers. Now, Fathers is a beer brand, very different. You got skincare, fragrance, and beer. I don't know if any other entrepreneurs have ever done those 3. We're gonna see if I can. I don't know. We'll see. I definitely drink beer, depending how the fragrance and the skincare does. So it's helpful both ways. But the idea for Fathers was a good friend of mine named Connor. He and I used his platform called Tribe Dynamics to track the effectiveness of Youth to the People talking about, or other people talking about Youth to the People on social media. So every time somebody posted about Youth to the People and said, I use this skincare, I use their cleanser, here's why, it would generate a certain amount of impressions, a certain amount of views. He tracked all that data, and then you could say, great, it's worth this much media value to me every time somebody talks about it. How do we get more people to talk about it? Whether it's sending out products, doing sampling, throwing events. You see, I'm sure brands come by the campus all the time with buses full of stuff and they throw things out. They're trying to get people to, right? They want you to try it. Sampling is hugely important. And hopefully people talk about it on social too, because it does drive more impressions, which helps the brand awareness. So that's what his company did. So all the biggest consumer brands in the world use this platform. We became buddies. We'd meet over beers all the time. And he lives in Lafayette, where Aaron and I live as well. And about 2 years ago, he sold, and he was like, hey man, we've always talked about it'd be fun to make beer. And no one in beer really markets the way beauty or fashion does. But if we did it, and I was like, I'd love to, let's do it. And one day he called me and said, what if we did clean beer? I was like, oh, I like this. And the reason I liked it was there aren't really any clean options in the beer space. There's a clean option in wine, there's a clean option in most alcohols now. Everything in the grocery store, right? If you're buying a Snickers, there's like probably an organic version of a Snickers, right? Like everything has an organic option that's quote unquote cleaner, except for beer.
Come to Germany.
Right. So that's part of our German purity laws are very important to us in our brewing process, because most of the beers have additive ingredients, right? And so German beers are actually starting to take off in the US big time, especially in like a Whole Foods, other areas. You see a ton of them. And so we were like, man, what if we do an American lager? I was kind of leaving my craft beer space, just going back to Coors Light, but I didn't like to taste Coors Light anymore. And I was like, I want a beer that I like to drink. It tastes great, that's using ultra premium ingredients, and is as clean as we can make it. And so Connor knew a brewer that was really good at making beer, won a bunch of awards around the world. So we got together, started working on it, and we tested a lot of the beers out there to see, was there not a clean version of beer because beer is just clean? Like, what is going on? And then we started to find there's a lot of PFOAs, a lot of heavy metals, a lot of microplastics, a lot of Roundup, because the main thing in beer, right? Beer is made from malted barley. What's barley? It's a commodity crop, so they spray all the shit, whatever it is on there, and here you go. So it's no different than really anything else in the grocery store that you see. And what was it? We were just talking about Health Aid Kombucha. Have you guys seen that around the PFOAs and Health Aid Kombucha? Now that I said it, Instagram will tell you about it. But they have a super high level of PFOAs, right? Now they're not no one's adding this stuff intentionally, but it's from whatever commodity crop they bought. That's how it filters all the way through. No one's adding a bunch of bad things, right? So anyways, we were like, man, I was really excited about this. Connor's really excited about this. So we started working on it. It took us about a year. All the beers we tested, we were like, okay, how do we get it to be as clean as possible? We follow a lot of the German purity laws. German purity laws basically mean you can only use yeast, hops, malt, and barley. There's nothing else. That's how we're doing it. And then we use all organic ingredients. We just got USDA certified organic. And then we have a lot of filtering at the end, which lagers are filtered. That's one difference we do. So we filter a lot of the excess enzymes, yeast, and it gets rid of most of the microplastics for us versus what you find in like another beer. And it tastes great, the most important thing. So all three products, whether it's beer, fragrance, or skincare, fragrance smells really good. We use the best fragrancer in the world, a guy named Jerome, at a fragrance house called Grover Tag. He's built some of the biggest fragrances in the world. These people write one of the most effective cleansers on the market still to this day. So it has to be the best product. Has to taste great, has to work the best, and then does it, like for me with Fathers, it was like, is it actually, if we're gonna say it's a clean American lager, is it actually clean? So we worked with third-party labs, they tested every beer, we test all of our beers to make sure what's left over, how much are we cleaning it out? And it costs more money to make an organic beer, but we think, again, there's not a lot of them out there. Let's be the first, let's do it the right way and get popular. And try to build our own market niche around that. So now we're launched, we're just in the East Bay right now, getting ready to grow, expand around all over Northern California, and then take it out nationally over the next 5 to 7 years. So 3 brands, very different, but I think all with the same, not the same North Star, but we built with my co-founders a true North Star that we really believe in, that no matter what the brand has to be and do this, and then we can figure out the rest around that. And it allows for us all to work together. And as we build teams out, they understand what we're trying to do. We all have the same goal. We're gonna have disagreements all the time, but that's okay, because it's all trying to make it the best for what the specific North Star is. The other thing you'll notice is every brand I've founded, I've had co-founders with, because for me, A, it's just a lot more fun to have your friends in the room and do things together. And B, if you have most of the stuff you're gonna have to do the first 5, 10 years of business is a little bit of data and a lot of gut instinct. And so if you can bounce that, your gut versus their gut, and bounce it off each other first before you're in a boardroom or sitting in front of a big retailer or whatever else it may be, your gut instinct's always gonna tell you is this right or wrong for the brand, right or wrong for the business? And it'll allow for you to get around all those tough decisions the right way. Because if you just data yourself into everything, there will be no feeling for the brand. And in the consumer space, I truly believe you have to have a feeling, because at the end of the day, whether people buy it online or buy it in the store, you end up holding it in your hand a lot when you consume it. And so it's got to all connect. It's got to feel like something that you really spent your money on. That's the brands. We can talk a little bit about investing or
actually, we can.
Fundraising or whatever you want.
I actually wanted to talk a little bit more about the acquisition process. So,
oh yeah.
So for YTTP, is this you guys? You were starting to say you kind of decided it was about time, or did they approach you? Or
Well, it's
how did that
yeah.
happen?
So they actually approached us. We had talked to the L'Oreal team for a couple of years. There's a team at L'Oreal that does mergers and acquisitions, so we got to know them. We got to know the M&A teams at all the big beauty strategics, because our brand was very popular. It was growing fast. We were getting all the attention, and so people were really interested. Now, we thought it was awesome, but over the time, as we hit a certain size, you hit a point with your investors where you're like, are we going to sell this? If we are, you hire a banker, you start a process. Usually brands will clean stuff up. You don't always see it as a consumer, but I always find it funny. You'll see like founders move, I don't care what industry, they'll like leave California or New York and move to Texas or Florida. And then you know they're probably gonna sell in 24 months. It's a fascinating study, but it always happens. But you clean it up, you do certain things, right, so it's a really efficient business so that you can sell. Now, our belief was, yeah, we're not gonna move, but I wasn't gonna move. But we didn't have a lot to clean up because we had really good investors that helped us along the way, just have a really clean business. And ultimately they're buying a brand, and if you mess with the brand, they can build a clean business, they can't build a brand. They're strategic, so just keep focusing on brand. We were thinking about starting it's called a process in 2022, but L'Oreal came in August of 21 and said, hey, we want to buy it, here's the offer. What do you guys think? We had talked a lot, we kind of danced around for the last 2 years, and so they made us an offer that we kind of couldn't say no to. Brought it to our investors, they were aligned, so they went through, it was about a 90-day process once we signed what's called a term sheet. Term sheet had the basics of like, here's how much money, here's the basic, like what's gonna happen after you sell it. Once we aligned on that, then we aligned on, going to term. It took 90-ish, 95 days of diligence. Diligence, right? They inspect everything possible about the business. Is there anything they're worried about when they buy it? Because they insure it, and the insurers have to sign off, lawyers sign off. There's a bunch of lawyers everywhere, and it's in sleep for 3 months.
How was for you the earn-out period, the 2 years that you mentioned?
So our deal was 100% cash plus a 4-year earnout. But I didn't have to be there for the earnout. So,
Can you talk to us more about how it feels like to be in business with family members? And you were talking about your cousin, who you're really close to. What are the advantages, or maybe even also disadvantages of embarking on ventures with family members?
I mean, it's a good question. It can be great. I think my cousin Greg and I had the perfect balance of we're cousins, but we're like brothers, but we're not brothers, and I think that's a fundamental difference. Brothers probably fight more than cousins do, no matter how close they are, right? So, and there's no that built up penning, like any backstory, I guess, if you will. But so we were very lucky. We had a great relationship. We could bounce things off. We also had very different expertises that we knew. Greg was our creative lead. He was handling creative, brand, and we met in the middle. Creative, brand, and sales, and I was handling finance, sales with him, and marketing with him, and brand. But like finance ops, I would handle. He'd handle the creative side, and we'd meet kind of brand, marketing, sales world in the middle. So we knew what we were good at, strengths and weaknesses wise. So I think family can be great because you have that trust that no matter what, when you're in the room together, you have the same goal. The downfall of working with family, and I know this because we hired other family members that were more junior or senior, is if things don't align, right, and they're your employee, that can get a little weird. So that was like the one thing I kind of learned the first time around. But I think when you're in business with them, with family, which is what you hear about is really tough, you have to be aligned on, like, again, whatever the business is, what's its North Star, and what are each of your expertise. So like if we get in an argument about, on youth, like, hey, I think this product, that orange serum, this shouldn't launch right now. It's not right. It's got to launch, caffeine's hot, we got to do it, we need it. Okay, well, why? Let's work it through, and then ultimately make that final decision. Now, same thing, if this image came out and I was like, it's too wet, that's horrible, doesn't look real, whatever. Your guy goes like, we got to do it. Well, he runs creative. At the end of the day, it's his call. So I can say all my opinions, but then they he'll make that final call. So you kind of, and then financially, operational, I'm like, okay, we got to do this. We're like, okay, I don't want to do it, but I will. So I think pros and cons, like everything. But I always thought having him in the room, it's the only way we would have made it, because we went through a lot. Just building it, we had no idea what we were doing. Like we didn't have MBAs. We didn't have anybody in our family that we were the first people in our family going to college, so we were also like learning on the fly a lot. So being able to talk to him at all hours of the night, like, how do we do this? How do we figure this out? Was super helpful.
At what point did you have to start clear separation of tasks, as you just said, like your cousin made the final calls of like everything creative. Like how long did it take to like get this clear structure?
Well, the smaller you are, the more you do, right? So when there's 2 people, you're doing everything together, and there's 3. When we sold, we had 75 employees. So at that point, we had a leadership team too that had teams under them, and then we just sort of chose like where we meet in the middle. You handle this, I handle that, because the strength of us being 2 founders is you can get twice as much done if you're efficient about it. If we're in everything together, so it kind of was a force of amount of work we needed to do and the amount of time we had, and we started to be like, all right, you got that, I got this, I got that, you got that type thing. So it kind of happened as we grew, and we were, so busy that we had to. Because in the beginning, and even now, like it's super fun. So you want to be in everything, even if you're not like the expert in the subject matter. You just want to be in it. So.
Who in your team had equity in the company when you sold it?
Good question. We had a leadership team with equity, and then we had what's called a long-term incentive program. So everybody that was employed at the time when we sold essentially had equity. And it was tied to years of service and like kind of salary level we were at. And then it was just a straight equation, and then that determined how much they got. So yeah, just there's different ways to do it. Consumer's a lot different than tech, and that not typically in consumer not everyone has equity. It's like a few at the top, maybe a couple early hires do, and then as you grow pretty quickly they don't, because there are very few consumer brands that ever exit into an IPO. It just doesn't happen. The few that have happened, Allbirds, what happened to them? They just died, right? Like who else? Like there's a couple beauty brands that have done it. They're struggling now. It's just rare in consumer because there's not enough margin in long-term revenue numbers versus like a tech. So you don't see a lot of equity grants. So that's why we did the long-term incentive program, which was a cool thing that allowed for everyone to have a great outcome when we exited. But if you're not there, you don't get it. So that was the kicker. I think there was a thing over here.
Yes. So I have a few questions, but essentially in this entire journey that you mentioned, it includes a lot of people that align with your North Star and your ideas and ethics, right?
Yeah.
I get in terms of family that is kind of, I would say, easier to recognize because you've known them practically your whole life. So you know that that person is going to stick, right? But when it comes to investors, you said you had amazing investors. You had your friend who was CEO at Road initially. And in discussions, people say that they're aligned and that they agree with your fundamentals. How did you recognize that that's actually what they're going to do over the longer run? Because in such brands, it is about the bigger picture, right? You can't focus on the short-term goals, essentially, right?
For sure.
So,
I think it's 2 parts. It's, I've known my business partners now. I knew them for a while before Connor with my beer grandfathers. I had worked with him for the prior 7 years using his platform. Knew him he was very well known in the beauty industry. We'd be at a lot of events together. We'd meet for beer. So I got to know him over the years, and we had similar values. Same with Melanie, but we had similar values that kind of come through when you watch somebody enough in whatever endeavor they're in. You figure out, and it's not always values like family values as much as just like professional values, or some personal values too are always mixed in there. And so you just kind of get to know somebody and figure it out. And then when you sit down and like, hey, we want to do this together, you just really map it out, right? Like, I was like, when he called me about the clean beer, I was like, all right, well, the only way I'm aligned is if we can make it the best tasting American lager in the world. Because otherwise, I don't think it matters. If it's clean but it tastes horrible, no one can drink your beer, right? And so he's like, I totally agree. I know this guy Harvey. So we like, no matter what, I knew day one it was going to taste like. I wanted to be proud to hand my beer to everybody. I want to be proud to hand my skincare or fragrance. I want to be proud of that. So I think you lay out those values ahead as a team of like, what are the key, it's gonna be the cleanest beer. It's gonna be the, like if we do a scent, it has to be this, you know, this complexity has to be there always. We can't, Melanie was really big on like, our bottles are completely custom. This is like a, you know, distorted picture on purpose, but like this top is a completely custom all aluminum piece. The bottle, she found this vase at a store in LA that was made in the 1800s that she's like, this is it, the feel of it. So it was like these things, we had to align on that early. I'm like, I really want to spend money to make it this way. I want to do these things. I want to have, so yeah, you just kind of build it out as part of your life. As much as you're building a business model of like, here's what it is, here's the target consumer, here's all these things, it's also like, what's the value prop? Like the value model internally almost, like the internal values that we know we have to always stick to.
Would you co-found a company with somebody that you just know recently, or somebody who you don't know well enough?
No, probably not.
Okay.
I mean, you never say never in life, but
yeah,
I'd be
more comfortable with having known them.
Yeah, I think for me, because we're, you know, in the consumer space, what we're doing, I think again, it comes back to like, you can align all these values, but do you know they'll stick to them?
Yeah.
And like, yeah, so they can be tricky. So, and then investors are just, you gotta look at their portfolio. When you're fundraising, they give you what's called a term sheet. The term sheet will tell you who an investor is, much more than the investor will tell you the investor is. So the investor tells you all these great things. I'm founder first, I'm gonna support you no matter what, and then they give you a term sheet that has all these rules that constrain a founder. Well, what they're telling you before doesn't really align, right? So you can kind of, now the way the smart investors get away is they put nothing in the term sheet, so then it's your responsibility as a founder with your lawyer to put all sorts of like founder-friendly terms in there and pressure test if they're okay with it.
Right. Okay.
So that's the way I mean, you do your diligence too, right? Like every investor I've had, they had a portfolio of brands to invest in, right? So you call their founders. You figure out a way that they're, all the people that work, like, that have raised money with them, and you figure it out. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing, and this could be interesting because of my limited knowledge, but you mentioned business growth versus brand growth, and well, as far as I understand, the brand is the business, right?
Right.
So what did you mean by that statement?
So what you'll find is, at least what I found, sometimes there's a way to grow your revenue, but it's not necessarily net positive for the brand. Meaning you can take advantage of a trend, you can launch it with more retail partners. Retail partners are good. You could launch, like we launched with Sephora with Lore. We'd also launched it with 5 other retail partners at the same time that maybe didn't quite have much of a prestige beauty perspective. It doesn't quite tell the whole story of Lore's prestige beauty thing. Now typically in fragrance you go direct only, you build your own store, but we still wanted to scale faster than that with a Sephora partner. But we weren't then, like if CVS called us tomorrow, we wouldn't put Lore in CVS. Now we would get more money, right? We'd make more sales, but it might not be brand additive to the world we're trying to build. And that's nothing against CVS, it's just a specific world, right? Like, so I think that's where, and like sometimes you'll do you do really cool things about the brand that long-term build brand love and loyalty that will ultimately equate to revenue, but it's not a direct ROI, like I get $1 out of this, right? So.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'm pretty glad you mentioned brand.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty curious, how do you do branding? For specifically, how do you do products storytelling? What's your strategy for like insert the brand mindset into the consumer's brand? Like how do you make them feel and make them think they are actually believe the idea of the brand?
I think, well, you have to love it first as a founder. You have to like really believe the same thing. Like I want to be able to confidently walk in the room and be like, if I had all of my stuff with me, you guys would try it and love it. Or I'd be proud of you. Maybe not gonna love all the fragrances. Fragrance is a very unique thing, but you know it feel high quality. Like whatever I'm saying it is, it is. So if you have that right, then you believe in it, then you can talk about it that way. You can walk that walk, if you will. And then I think it's really important that, you know, when you're building a product, it's fragrance, skincare, beer, it's like why did you, like skincare was a really interesting one because you launch a lot of products, right? So, but we always had like behind us, our grandmother always told us, you treat skin for type and concern. That's what our grandmother taught us about skincare. So we're like, cool, every product we do will have a skin type, skin concern, like a purpose to like, what are we going to do? We're not just gonna throw kale in a cleanser for the heck of it. Like, why do you need kale in a cleanser? Oh, well, it's highest antioxidant value. You extract it the right way, you get all those antioxidants. If you're cleaning your face with great surfactants that are like the suds, and a lot of antioxidants will help remove, it'll just be a better cleaning process. Your skin's more hydrated after. So there's always like, you know, you layer that in, and then those stories can be told in the products. Now you're like, oh wow, I buy this superfood cleanser and it's got kale plus these great surfactants. That's why my skin feels, and it is why your skin feels so good afterwards. But now the product marketing is built for you because of how you built the product, and then the clinical and the claims and things are built in for you because of how you built the product. So you kind of start a product, make it the best possible thing, make it all make sense. Don't just throw stuff in there for trends and then build it up from there.
Would you do the marketing like internally, or you like hiring like external marketing?
I've always done everything internally. I've never hired an external marketing agency.
How do you make sure like the guy who is taking charge of the marketing completely align with your idea?
You work closely with them. That's why I do startups and I don't want to do L'Oreal. Because if you're right, like and this is not enough, but L'Oreal is massive, right? Marketing agencies, you got a marketing team, you got another team. So when you get that big, you do have to do that. I'm not good at that. Like I got there, I was like, oh shit, I don't know what to do. So I was like, I gotta get out and start something new. But that's just not my strength. We sit along like, I had a meeting a couple hours earlier on Fathers, and we were talking about a sales shift we're gonna do, and it was like, cool, let's do it. Let's update it, let's change it, and it go, right? It's just, you do it. You don't wait around for whoever to tell you or get a marketing research paper to tell you, okay, cool, this is now a good idea. So that's sort of the way I like to work and live. But that's also not scalable. So at a certain size, like I'm not the right person to run a company, because at a certain size, it's out. You do have to be a little more strategic in planning, but yeah, that's what we do. But it's always internal. I mean, and I have a lot of great people on all my teams that are phenomenal marketers. So I've gotten really good at hiring, really good at working with them, and you get people, once you trust them, they know what to do. So yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
How would you describe the current beauty and face care industry, especially because I recently read that brands like Coty and Kylie Lip Cosmetics are really struggling because the market is changing so quickly. What's your view on that?
It is changing quickly. It's changing quickly. The overall market, I think, is flatter like 0.5%, but it's a massive market. But a Coty, a Kylie, things like that are not doing well, and then there's a Rhode that's growing 50% year over year and on pace to do $600 million, right? So it's just certain brands are losing and other brands are winning. What's interesting right now is there used to be a lot of net new that kept happening, and hasn't been a lot of net new overall business. So now you're taking a little more from each other. But it's a pretty big, pretty healthy industry, and there's a lot of opportunity. That being said, you get north of that like couple $100 million revenue mark, and it gets hard. Again, I've never been there, but I've watched it. I've gotten to know a woman named Corey, who is the CMO of Elf. Everyone know Elf Beauty? They're one of the big beauty strategics. So Elf just bought Rhode. They've got like 4 other brands. They're, I don't know, $10 billion market cap. And it's really interesting there because they are experiencing those same headwinds. They're having issues. And I think one of the reasons why they'll make it out of it is they have a big rule about not being big corporate. So everything they do that they think takes too long, they immediately don't do. They eliminate that whole process from their system. And their whole purpose there is to try to keep up with these smaller brands, like brands I build or other people build, that can move really fast. Because then you can, like a Coty, even a Kylie, it's so big, it's hard for them to move as fast as they used to. And Kylie's entire brand was built on trends, right? So if they can't move as fast because of a Coty or because of whatever else, they start to just slow down.
I want to talk about the actual effectiveness of skincare and what misconceptions people have behind, because there's so much marketing and everything, and I mean obviously you're marketing kale and salad and spinach.
Yeah, it's a good salad.
Who says that it's actually effective when there are so many people that say you just need a basic face cleanser and a moisturizer, and all the other stuff is bullshit?
It's a fair question. I mean, I think I think when you use skincare, you feel a difference. And so it's pretty like, it's a very much a personal experience. I think most people that are using skincare are feeling it when they use it. They feel the experience, like, "Ooh, my skin feels better afterwards. This thing changed, that changed, whatever it is." That's it. B, with a lot of clinical, like we do a ton of clinical studies, did a ton of clinical studies to show like, whether it's a 24-hour test, a 3-month test, changes in what the skin looks like, feels like, walks like, talks like, whatever, right? So there is a lot of clinical testing that can be done to back up these claims. Because if I say my cleanser is going to get rid of your wrinkles tomorrow, and it doesn't, you can sue me. There are consumer protections out there. So you have to be able to back up any of your claims with clinical data.
Isn't that why you're not claiming anything?
That's a fair point. You get really good at not claiming anything if you need to, but then we make a lot of claims. Like a lot of my products make claims. We had clinical data to back it up. So big ones like, moisturizers, like the amount of, like 24-hour moisturizer, you'll see that, right? That's a clinically backed claim that the skin, there's a hydration meter that you can like stick into somebody's skin, and you can tell how hydrated it is, and this moisturizer will keep it hydrated for 24 hours, as an example. Or we use a certain peptide in a moisturizer that clinically we got tests that like, you could see the depth of wrinkles was slightly smaller after 30 days. They use like some sort of a meter to test that. So you can back up. Now, is it a perfect, the thing is with skincare, like, all that aside, diet, health, exercise, are you wearing sun care, how old are you, what's your genetic makeup, like there's so many other factors that will still cause you to age, that are like, look like you're aging in your skin. So our big thing is people is always like skin health, like how healthy is your skin? Because the healthier your skin is, the better off it will ultimately look. And that could be through a combination of just like washing it properly and moisturizing, and wear a hat if it's sunny out, things like that.
But from a consumer perspective, like me, I'm walking into Walgreens.
Yeah.
And most of the time overspending on skincare because branding convinces me to buy it.
Yeah.
What do you think are the most common misconceptions the average consumer has about skincare? Yes.
Well, I'm not sure a common misconception. I mean, I'm not sure what a common misconception would be in skincare, as much as I would say there are a lot of great products out there, and it's really, I think where the brain and the marketing comes in is like, what brand are you supporting, right? And I think no different than clothing. There's tons of clothing out there. Why do you pick the certain brands? Do you like the style, you like the fit, you like the cut, whatever it may be. But I think with brands, so that's how brands try to treat it. That being said, there's key ingredients, there's certain combinations that are gonna work for different people, different skin types, and hopefully the marketing, like a lot of our marketing to people was working with beauty creators and social media to talk about the product a ton, so that you would really feel comfortable, like, okay, I align with her skin type, I know what she's talking about, that makes sense to me, I wanna buy that product. And so you're marketing through community because everyone's giving you like an honest review, and then you get a feel for what you need. Does there need to be 500 skincare brands in CVS? No, there could be 5, and you probably cover everybody. But no one likes, or Americans who like to consume.
And then last question with beer.
Yeah.
I'm not from California, but I've been here for 3 months, and I've realized that people are drinking much less alcohol than where I'm from, Germany. And it seems like it's, and especially beer actually.
Yeah.
And people put less value on good beer, but they like low calorie beer that tastes like water.
100%.
What is your thought process behind founding a beer company in an environment where everyone listens to Huberman's podcasts and starts drinking alcohol?
It's a good question. I think it's an opportunity because I think that we've been drinking beer as a society for 600 years, 700 years now, and even longer. And so I think it's that beer may slow down, but it's not going away. And I think in every consumer vertical that exists, there's so much competition. So no matter what, there's competition, right? But I'm jumping into a consumer vertical that A, I have a differentiation, like a point of differentiation, A. B, investors, new brands, everybody else is scared of it because it is slowing down. Craft breweries are closing left and right. So people aren't willing to jump in. And I could jump in and be like, hey, if it goes from a $38 billion a year of lager sales in the US to $36 billion or 35, which would devastate like an Anheuser-Busch, there's still so much business to be had that like for me, when I'm trying to build a $50, $100 million business, I'm fine. So I think to me, it's almost more of an opportunity. I think in some ways too, it's like, let's be the beer that if Andrew Huberman was gonna have a beer, he would drink that beer. Like, God, it's the cleanest I've seen, it's organic, I'm gonna have a beer, I'll have that, right? So that's also, I think for us, we're kind of leaning into, if you are very health conscious, like I'm a pretty health conscious guy overall, I just like to have beers every once in a while. You know, it's a good balance there, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, good questions. Anyone else? Cool.
All right, so I have the lightning round question.
Okay.
You ready? So, whatever comes to mind, take as long as you want to answer. What is entrepreneurship to you?
Gosh, the entrepreneurship is just starting or doing something you want to do, kind of just regardless of what anybody else says.
Why are you an entrepreneur?
I don't like working for people.
What failure have you had as an entrepreneur that you found to be most valuable?
I know. So a lot of times, especially early days of Youth with People, we said yes to opportunities to grow the business that they wouldn't have hurt the brand. Like Sephora wanted us to expand into Europe, and we were like, I don't know. We did it because it's gonna be great. We should have said no. So the power of no is the most important opportunity. The most important thing I've learned as an entrepreneur. Most entrepreneurs, saying no is the hardest thing because you're barely hanging on, especially those first few years. You're like, I can't say no to this. I can't. But it's either bad for the brand or it's actually going to be way more expensive than you think it is. So it can actually hurt your business more. So the power of no is by far the most. Like my cousin Greg and I used to not say no, and we went to every event. We did everything. We were working 150 like every hour of the day. I barely slept for like 5 years, but it worked. But that was our learning. That was our like educational process. But we also could. I look back now, like I say no to 80% of the things I'm asked for now with fathers or with Laura because I already know none of that matters. But you have to experience it the first time, so it was the best lesson, but also a valuable lesson to learn that way.
And then what success have you had as an entrepreneur that you're most proud of?
Well, I mean, sold a company, so that's obviously the easy one. But I'd say I'm very proud of the fact that with all my brands, I feel very confident that I can hand you a product, give you a product, you buy my product, and it should be what you were looking for. Like that, I feel confident in the quality of it, I feel confident in the safety of it, and that like I'm not hiding behind anything with my products. And so I feel very proud of that over as many years as I've been in it now. I've only launched 2 beers. That's easy. I'm only going to keep the 2 beers. But fragrance and then in skincare especially, we never launched a product that we didn't really want to do. It wasn't because of a trend. CBD was big in skincare in like 2019 and 20, and Sephora was like, do CBD. And Greg and I were like, I don't understand why we put it in skincare. There's many benefits to it. I don't think skincare makes sense, so we didn't do it. It would have been a great claim to your question earlier. CBD, it'll calm you down, but there was no data, there were no clinicals that we could do to say it worked. And for us, that was like, yeah, I'd say that'd be what I'm most proud of, is the products themselves. Like I know what's in them.
Cool. And then one more. If you had a single piece of advice for an aspiring entrepreneur, what would that one piece of advice be?
Oof. I gave you the power now. I'd say just, someone told me this. I was like, man, we've just been really lucky. We have. But you work your way into luck. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs get a little bit lost in the fact that like, I should be here now, or I should be this now. And I talk to entrepreneurs all day, they're like, oh, this should be happening. I'm like, all right, well, that would be lucky if it does, so work your way into it. And just like, in some ways, you can outsmart people, but there's always smarter people, but you can outwork most everybody. And it's a cliche thing to say, but it's so true. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs that just, they're so close, but they aren't you can tell they're not ready to outwork everybody else. And if you can't outwork everybody else, you probably won't make it. Because there's, you know, Greg and I always had this thing, like, if we had a good idea, we're like, this is really gonna work, we're like, 100 other people have thought of this, so let's make sure we do it and do it right and do it fast. And not like, oh, we're too busy, we can't, like, just make it happen, because everybody else is thinking about the same thing. No different than the beer, like, this is a good idea, we should do it, and it was like, we just made it, I mean, we made it happen fast, you know, we went from an idea in the summer of 24 to selling beer in the summer of 25. We're in Whole Foods, we're getting ready to roll out in Sprouts, Bevmo, we're in talks with Safeway, like, we're going fast, but we're willing to just like push past everybody else that we have to make it happen.
Do we have some more questions?
If you have them, sure.
Okay. Oh yeah, you want to?
No, go ahead. I can go later.
In the beginnings of being an entrepreneur, you have limited labor for a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah.
So, and how do you? You were just talking about this. How do you decide? How do you stay efficient in the first years of being an entrepreneur when you can't outsource the nitty-gritty or the details of your work onto employees and have to do everything by yourself? Like, what are your methods of staying efficient and moving fast?
It's just staying. I mean, that's a good way of saying it. Staying efficient and fast. It's kind of goes back to that power of no thing. Like, you won't know it early on, candidly, unless you've done it. So you just have goes back to the outwork everybody else a little bit and learn it. But be quick. I will say a lot of people hang on to ideas because they think they're good ideas, and that's not the brand. Like, the brand North Star is there, but like you could have a marketing idea, right? This is it. And if you can identify as fast as possible, like, oh shit, it's not working, and just hit. Don't be like throw the ego out and just hit the eject button on that idea. No matter if you spend money, no matter if you told everybody about it and they're expecting it. If you're like, oh, it's not going to work, just get rid of it and go on to the next. Like, don't be afraid to move fast and break things, right? That's what all the tech guys say. It's very true. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to be efficient with your time early on because you just have to do everything. You have to take every call. You have to check every box on everything to make sure you're like not missing something, especially if you don't like I've never done beer before, so how do I know beer? Well, I've talked to everybody in beer I could. Every person we could meet on LinkedIn, we DM'd. We had a friend who knew a person, and we knew these 3 beer investors. They like just try to figure it out to help to reduce the, shrink that learning curve. And now we're in it, and we're like, okay, we know these 3 things because these guys all told us this. We have these 2 advisors that have been in beer a long time. They're helping us. So there's ways like that you can hack through. You can get advisors. You can get advisors. LinkedIn's a powerful tool. It's actually fascinating how many people are willing. Let me take a step back. It's not LinkedIn itself. Greg and I got to know almost every beauty founder that had a brand in Sephora over our years. We were selling it to people in Sephora, which we still are. We all became friends, and guess what? Now you got this network of people that are doing the same thing as you. So you can call them all and be like, what are you doing about this? Or how are you doing that, right? So you can kind of get more efficient because you can build those network out. So I think networking is really important. I think not being afraid to talk to your competitors is really important. Most people aren't willing to do that, but everybody's in the same boat, so why not? Yeah, that's kind of a long-winded answer, but I was circling around like how we figured it out.
I was wondering what your biggest challenges have been when trying to build brands, because the power of brands are that customer will identify with the brand or the products, and therefore have better customer lifetime value and want to be part of a movement or the identity that you want to be perceived as. And how did that kind of impact how much you were able to spend, for example, for advertisement per customer in terms of his first purchase, but like reoccurrence with the brand?
There's a financial constriction there based upon like what marketing budget you have early on, and then there's you start out when you're building a brand. It's once you have your idea, your purpose, whatever it may be, and then who do you think is going to buy it? Start there, right? Like I started Fathers. I know how to do influencer marketing and like creator community social marketing really well, but I'm not going to reach out to all the people I know from beauty. Like, hey, you 10 beauty influencers that have millions of followers. Talk about beer. No one would care, right? So start reaching out to all the beer experts that were talking about beer and social. Like that's my always initial launch marketing phase is like, social media is a very powerful tool. Everyone follows somebody there. So find the people that are talking about. First, it's like start with the experts. Because if you can get the experts, going back to like, do we have the best cool product, the best skincare, the best fragrance, the best beer? Get those experts first. Be like, damn, this is actually really good. And that will start the trickle down effect. Sometimes when you're early on and we have a little bit of a resume, so it helps us reach out. So what do? We found for the fathers, we found people talking about beer that had like maybe 5, 10, 15,000 followers. The brands don't really reach out to. But they had solid audiences, so reach out to them, send them the beer. Guess what? A couple people following them who are bigger beer. Because all the smaller influencers have bigger influencers following them. So you work your way up the ladder. And you just send a product and hope they talk. That's kind of what it is. And you try to get to know them, say hello, tell them your mission, and see if they're into it. And then from there you build out, okay, now it's starting to work. In skincare, it's starting to work. All these people are talking about it. Now it's built some retargeting ads. It's built the top of funnel that like, take the message we want about the product out there. I think people are a little too broad in marketing. You should be more specific. Like our cleanser was like just the best cleanser, right? So just like lean on that. Don't be shy to say like this is just the best cleanser out there. Just build big and then slowly focus in.
Yes. So I just, out of curiosity, you mentioned that you said yes to Sephora to expand into Europe, which in hindsight you should have said no to. Can I ask why? Because,
Yeah. So Sephora Europe is big. We launched with them. It took a lot of product, a lot of cash. We didn't have a team over there, so we were relying on Sephora to grow our business versus us growing our business. We were, here in California, calling them, dealing with them, hey, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. They're like, hey, it's not working, try this. And so it just ends up being a big distraction.
Yeah.
It's not that it was anything like, quote unquote bad. It just, what it did was it distracted us from the goal of like building our really strong US business. So we had enough resources, time, and team to then launch in Europe the right way with the team, with resources and time, right? So it's just way too early.
So how did you go about it? Because you would have to come up with a more sustainable way to continue it, right? You can't extract back anyway.
No, we just kind of figured it out.
Okay.
It was distracting. It was hard. We kept having a lot of success in the U.S., so we could start to hire people to help cover it, and kind of made it through. But looking back, it's like we should now.
You could have done it later. maybe?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but every business is different. But yeah, I always tell anybody in beauty, I'm like, don't leave the U.S. until you are big. Beauty's really hard to do if you don't have people in that country, because there's just so many differences in the way you communicate to the audience to say the same thing, and if you don't have people there in the field, it's really hard.
Right. Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? Time?
Good, yeah?
Good? Yeah?
Thank you, Joe, we appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.